Hello and welcome to Maiden, Matriarch with me, Louise Perry, and to a special Q&A episode. I sent out a post on Substack a little while ago asking if anyone had any Q&A episodes. Previously, Q&A questions rather. Previously, I'd only done these for founding members, but I thought, well, let's see if there's the appetite to do this on YouTube and to do this as a bigger thing, maybe a regular thing going forward. We'll see what people think. I got an enormous number of questions, and unfortunately for me, they're all overwhelmingly really good questions as well. So I really do have to answer them. I have something like 70 questions that people have sent me in. I'm not going to do them all in this episode, but I thought that I'd try just doing a solo episode, responding to people's questions, pretending as if I'm on someone else's podcast and I'm being bombarded with questions, except in this instance, it's my own listeners. I'm going to start with this one. So this is from Armchair Expert. I assume it's a she, given the ovary symbols in her profile pic. She asks, given the almost total and rather dark explanation for all human behaviour provided by evolutionary psychology, how do you find the positives in the human condition? So I do agree that evolutionary psychology is often a very dark discipline to look into. And I have to say, I'm sometimes amazed by the sort of cold-bloodedness of some evolutionary psychologists I'm friends with, who can just be incredibly blunt and seemingly unmoved, I think, by talking about the very worst things that humans do to each other and why they might be adaptive, right? I mean, that's the thing that's really disturbing. Are some of the worst things that we do to one another actually crucial to our survival? Is it possible that we've only arrived here as modern people with our modern kind of moral objections to all of these things because our ancestors did terrible things to one another, whether that be, murder, infanticide, enslaving other people, and so forth. I mean, I suppose that the thing to remember always is the naturalistic fallacy. Just because things are natural doesn't mean that we have to welcome them. We might resist them. I don't really know if I believe in God. As regular listeners will know, it's something that I wrestle with. I don't have a sort of confident faith. But I do instinctively believe in original sin, if that makes sense. In that I think that the idea that we are deeply flawed and that acting well, being good and moral, is difficult and requires constant struggle. I think that is just like obviously true. As I see it, I think that's instinctively, I feel that to be true. And that original sin, whether or not you want to frame it with the Genesis story, that original sin is a sort of compelling way of conveying that truth. And I suppose we can regard the insights that evolutionary psychology offers as further evidence of that. We say, okay, yes, there is a darkness in the human soul. There are things that we are inclined to do, everything from murder to adultery to whatever, all of these things that are forbidden within most religious traditions and certainly within Christianity. That doesn't mean that we ought to do them. That means that we need to be constantly vigilant to our own desire to do them and constantly self-critical and so on. I know that some atheists will regard that as being a very masochistic way of living your life, to be constantly ruminating on your own sinfulness. I think that it's the only way, really, though, to live your life. I think that being complacent about your own unblemished moral record is a fast-track way to behaving terribly. So, so I suppose in that sense, there are ways in which Christianity and theory of evolution are at odds, and obviously historically have been at odds if you have a literal view of the Bible and so on. I don't think that they are on that point. I think that Christians are well aware. I think that I don't want to say all, but very, very many religious traditions are well aware that humans are flawed, and that whatever God or gods created us, they clearly didn't create us as perfect beings. We have something, we have to strive to be moral and to behave better. And I suppose all that evolutionary psychology does is just give us a greater degree of detail in understanding our own fallen nature. So, I mean, I would say that understanding it is probably good, actually, in terms of, I mean, okay, so one example, there's some very interesting research that has been done by evolutionary psychologists, and indeed psychologists of other forms, on female intersexual competition and female aggression towards other women. And one of the features of female intersexual competition is that we are we often deceive ourselves about the nature of our aggression, because the aggression that female aggression is so often indirect. Often has to have plausible deniability, because the point of it is that it doesn't invite violence, because that's risky. Like women, given having young children and everything, and being physically smaller and weaker, we don't want to be getting into violent conflict. So when we are aggressive to other people, we tend to do it in much sneakier ways. And we tend to also do it in such a way that we don't even know always that we're doing it. We can be quite oblivious to our own aggression. And I have genuinely found, reading about this, it has made me more attentive to my own instincts to be aggressive in that way, because I'm obviously not, I'm a human being, I'm a woman. I have those same drives. I have those same innate tendencies towards behaving aggressively, behaving immorally, right? And actually knowing the research really well, and knowing the ways in which women tend to behave badly, antisocially, etc., has actually made me more attentive to my own darker instincts. So I think that, I mean, yes, I mean, the question was, how do you sort of stay positive about the human condition? I mean, I guess my answer is I don't think that we should be, except to the extent that we are thinking, morally reasoning animals. We do have the ability to choose to behave better and to be kinder, etc. And whether that's because we have evolved in that way, or because we were created in that way, or because God guided our evolution in that way, I think that better understanding the darkness is the way to resist the darkness. That's my answer.